Hey guys, welcome to On Tap. I'm Chris, and today we are going to be talking about a major American craft brewery with a love for all things Belgian, the aptly named New Belgium Brewing Company. Let's get to the episode. The idea for this brewery actually came about when a young American couple took a bicycle ride through the Belgian countryside in 1988, trying excellent Belgian beers every step of the way. These two Americans were Kim Jordan and Jeff Lebish. Lebish and Jordan were so inspired by their trip to Belgium that upon returning to their hometown of Fort Collins, Colorado, they decided to start their own Belgian-inspired brewery, named the New Belgium Brewing Company in 1991. Jordan and her co-founder basically had to do everything. Jordan was doing bottling, sales, distribution, marketing, and everything in between. It was a lot of hard work, but eventually it definitely paid off. See, if you lived in Colorado in the early 90s, Belgian beer was something that was almost unheard of. So if you can't already guess, once Kim Jordan came on the scene with things like Amber and Abbey ales, she really created a new demand for this Belgian-inspired American craft beer in the Rocky Mountain region. Soon the beers were winning award one after another, and the company really started to get going. The now CEO, Kim Jordan, realized that she could actually spend her time managing an actual company, which was growing larger every day. And another thing that she did was establish Fort Collins, Colorado as the official headquarters of the company. And Fort Collins, Colorado, to this day, is where the New Belgium Brewing Company is still based. One of the two beers that Jordan started producing was the now quite well-known Fat Tire. And it's actually interesting. So Fat Tire became a popular enough beer that there was at some point sort of confusion, I think, with a lot of people over what the brewery was actually called. Many people thought that Fat Tire was actually the name of the brewery, not a style of beer produced by this company. I've definitely noticed in the last couple years, the New Belgium label is a lot more noticeable on much of the packaging, so it's clear to consumers just exactly who is brewing their beer. Jordan became so successful eventually that she was soon being interviewed by NPR in the 2010s on how she got to where she is today. In 2017, the New Belgium Brewing Company was available for purchase finally in all 50 states after 26 years of being in business. And you can also find the beer in 8 countries outside of America. The company was acquired in 2019 by the Japanese beer company Kirin, which technically invalidates the designation craft brewery, but the fact is the quality of the beer hasn't really changed, so I'm still going to keep referring to it as a craft brewery. They're the 4th largest craft brewery in the United States after only Sam Adams, Yuengling, and Sierra Nevada. And even if you factor in mega corporations like Budweiser, New Belgium is still a top 10 brewery. Their annual production is around 1 million barrels US every year. The company has 2 breweries, one in Fort Collins, Colorado, and the other in Asheville, North Carolina, which was opened in 2016. And that's sort of the new star production facility of the company in some ways. And it's really allowed New Belgium to hit higher production targets. In the words of the company, their focus is more on, quote, being a force for good. And to be honest, I will take that kind of initiative over a TV commercial or a billboard any day. In keeping with this mandate, New Belgium focuses heavily not only on giving back to the community, but also on clean energy initiatives. For example, in 2009, the company had what was at the time the largest privately installed set of solar panels built on top of the headquarters to provide power. And the company also focuses very heavily on clean water initiatives. Remember, if you do not have clean water, you can't make good beer. Just in 2019, New Belgium donated $1.5 million to various eco-friendly initiatives. And Fat Tire is now officially listed as a carbon-neutral beer. The company is also very employee-focused, and New Belgium's described as having something of a quirky corporate office culture. This focus on employees really came about when Kim Jordan decided in 2013 to effectively sell the company to her employees. So as of right now, if you work at New Belgium, you are basically a joint shareholder in the company. So that's the history of the company, along with what they're up to these days. But in terms of the beers that New Belgium actually makes, it's quite a lot. The company currently has 14 different varieties of beer that are available year-round. Their most popular flagship brand is, unsurprisingly, Fat Tire. This is an amber ale, or a Belgian ale as the company calls it, and it's going to be a pretty balanced beer with a good amount of hops and malt to give it sort of a nice, smooth taste. This is going to consist mostly of caramel malt with some undertones of apple and fennel. However, the company is also becoming increasingly known for other types of beer, not just Fat Tire. These include Voodoo Ranger IPA. Hitting shelves in 2017, the Voodoo Ranger IPA and many of its sister varieties has been gaining some serious traction as of late. I've definitely seen it in a lot of stores. This is going to be a solid IPA with tropical fruity notes along with a good amount of bitter, piney hoppiness. Supposedly there's some malt in there, but I don't think it's going to be very much. Voodoo Ranger Juicy Hazy IPA. This is like the regular Voodoo Ranger beer, but it's going to be unfiltered, so that's the hazy part. This beer, compared to its sister variety, is going to still have those tropical fruity notes in it, but it's also going to be a lot heavier and smoother. Triple. This is a Belgian-style triple. I'll talk more about triples in later videos, but my understanding is that the term refers to the ratio of malt to other parts of the beer, and the net result is usually a very high alcohol content in these beers, around 9% ABV. The New Belgium triple is going to be sort of a golden honey color with sweet caramel malty flavors, accented by a little bit of citrus and sort of floral aromas. The beer should also have a very clean, warming finish. Shift Pale Lager. It's going to be a crisp, clean lager with some undertones of floral elements and citrus, along with some honey. Fat Tire Belgian White. So this is going to be a Belgian-style wheat beer. Wheat beers are going to be characterized by both a heavy sort of wheat flavor along with more bright and often citrus notes due to things like orange and lemon being added to them. The New Belgium Fat Tire White is going to have a mix of orange and coriander to give it some extra pop. And you should expect there to be a combination of sweet, sour, floral, and bitter flavors, along with, of course, citrus. We are now at the tasting portion of the video, my favorite part. The first beer that we're going to be trying is the classic Fat Tire Amber Ale. Now, it's definitely a sort of golden amber color. Yeah, I'm getting some citrusy notes there. Yeah, that's a very balanced is exactly the word I would use to describe this. It's mostly malty. It's primarily malty, I would say, but there is a little bit of an underlying sort of hoppiness to it. Not much though. It's just sort of a nice little accent to what's mostly a heavier malty sort of beer, which is the kind of beer that I really enjoy drinking. Next, we have the New Belgium Shift. All right, we've got a kind of golden, yeah, very golden color. A little darker actually, a little darker than a lot of other lagers I've looked at and tried. Nice color actually, good, a little bit of good carbonation. Yeah, I'm actually getting some slight honey notes on that, definitely. Yeah, that's very nice. In a way, I feel like it has some similar elements to the Fat Tire. For a lager, actually, this is very nice. This is a good quality lager, but this is very it's got a very full feeling, and I get that sort of honey taste in my palate, which is very nice. It adds sort of an extra layer of complexity. Here we have the Voodoo Ranger IPA. You know, similar IPA color to some other IPAs I've seen, sort of an orangey, slightly amber color, but I'd say mostly orange. Let's give it a sniff. Very strong hoppy and floral elements coming through on this. Give it a taste. Well, it's not bad. It's actually, I'm gonna say it's a little weaker actually than I was expecting. I was assuming that this was gonna be very hard hitting and that my palate was gonna be really kind of taken over by a lot of hoppy and floral notes. It's a lot more subtle than I was expecting. It's a lot smoother actually too. In some ways say that the aroma of the beer is almost stronger than the flavor. For how strong the aroma is, one would expect a stronger flavor than what this has. This one's fine. It's something that I could see if you were a hardcore IPA drinker, you might find this to be frankly not that strong. But for someone like me, it actually works pretty well. Coming up as our fourth beer, we have the sister variety of the Voodoo Ranger IPA, the Voodoo Ranger Juicy Haze IPA. Yeah, so very similar color to the last one, slightly maybe more gold, but definitely hazy. This is a very hazy beer. I am not seeing through this at all. Completely translucent. Similar notes. It's got about the same aroma. Let's give it a taste. So there's more going on in that beer for sure than the regular Voodoo Ranger. When they said this is juicy, I see what they mean. It's got a much stronger, I would say, tropical fruit flavor. It's quite interesting actually, because once again, the super hoppy elements that I was expecting are not really in play as much. But I suppose with how this beer's listed as being sort of smoother and heavier, that does make sense. The fruit flavors are really like worked into the beer, in this case an IPA. Very interesting. Beer number 5 is the New Belgium Fat Tire, the Belgian White. Little bit of translucency there, but it's not as heavy as I was expecting. It's still pretty filtered in terms of the quality of the beer. Very pale, very sort of pale yellow. Let's give it a sniff. Yeah, okay, so I can definitely smell the coriander in this. Yeah, there's definitely sort of that kind of spicy, that sort of spice to it. More so than the orange. The coriander's coming through very strongly. Okay. That's also a good beer. Huh, that's also a good beer. We're really not coming across any that are, I would say, uninspired or just completely boring or anything like that. I think there are a number of pretty subtle and kind of complex flavors going on there. A little bit of a, yeah, not spice like a heat in my mouth, but sort of an extra flavor of some sort. I would describe it as, I guess, bitter. It's a very interesting beer. So last but not least, we have the 6th and final beer for the episode, the New Belgium Triple. We have a nice sort of golden yellow color, golden honey color. And let's take a sniff. This characteristic smell I think of when I think of Belgian style triples, where you can smell kind of that higher alcohol content, but it's a very nice smell. It's kind of worked into the body of the beer. And some honey, yeah, definitely. That honey right there. It's very nice. Very nice aroma. Yeah. This is an excellent beer. In some ways, with the flavor, and what it is I think it's the malt, but it's the honey especially. This tastes like you took this and you really just put the pedal to the metal and you increased the alcohol and the flavor and the complexity and all of that, you would end up with this. Very enjoyable. The warming sensation, actually, now I'm thinking about this, that's coming through right now. This has a warming sensation when you drink it, which is great. So let's get to final thoughts. In last place, and this is really last place, we have the basic Voodoo Ranger IPA. There's a bit of malt there, but I think it's in general kind of a weak IPA. There's not a whole lot of flavor compared to some other IPAs that I associate with this beer. Now, in this portion, what we have is a group of 4 different beers are ranked in a way where they're all good beers that are of different varieties. But at the same time, you can see that they're sort of organized in a way trending upwards based on my sort of general gut feeling of how much of these I would each want to drink. So the Voodoo Ranger Juicy Hazy IPA, I always keep forgetting this, Juicy Haze IPA, I find what's interesting about this is that tropical fruit flavor. With the Belgian White, what you've got is a very interesting mix of different sort of middling flavors. And by middling, I mean they're not super powerful, but they're not super understated. They're kind of right in the middle. You've got some coriander and a little bit of orange and some wheat and some underlying hints of kind of hops and bitterness, all sort of blended together. With this one, you've got a very nice lager that's like a regular table lager, but just a little bit more of that kind of full viscous honey flavor, which I think is very nice. And then with this one, you've got the Fat Tire Amber. And this is, in terms of just like a nice, calming, malty amber ale, this one is really, really nice to drink. For each of these 4, it's more about which of those styles do you think sounds appealing to you. And then of course, in first place though, I gotta give it to New Belgium Triple. And this thing is just a very, very excellent combination of some malt, some honey, high alcohol content that's really blended in there. And it's just sort of a very, as I said, sort of a warming beer. So that's how I would rank order these based on how much of them I would want to drink. And really it's around this line here where for these 3 and up, I would be happy to have more than one of. But that's ranked based on how much I'd want to drink each of these beers in terms of, let's say, total volume. But I think there's a little bit more to it than that, because we also need to rank the beers based on their total complexity. And here I'm going to be trying to think about how I would rank these beers based on what's going on in the palate when you're drinking them. How complicated are the flavors and what's sort of melding together? Out of these 4, I would rank them a little differently. I'd rank them more sort of in this vein. And now, of course, the Shift lager is a lot lower down because it's a nice lager with some honey in it. But in terms of combination of spices and citrus flavors and hops and dryness and malt, all sort of blending together, this is a beer that has a lot going on in it, and I've got to give it some points for that. This beer here as well, that kind of tropical fruit flavor coming through is quite interesting. It's quite nice. And then the amber ale is just a beautiful blend of really balance, hops and malt. I'm still putting this one in number 1 just because out of all of the 6, I've clearly ranked it in first place, so it's staying in that position. So anyway, I'm gonna put these back just the way that I had them the first time because at the end of the day, there should also be a component of how you like to drink your beer. But in any event, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know in the comments if you agree with my assessment, either this one over here or the other one, and I hope to see you in the next episode. If you enjoyed tuning into this channel and would like to stay abreast of more beer-related content on this channel in the future, why not go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as well as maybe hit that notification button so you can see when new videos are posted on our channel. And also, if you want to give us a like, that would be much appreciated. Thanks, we'll see you next time.